Hey, it's Meg, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Junk Journal January video. So today is day 19 and the prompt is mixed media, which is why you've seen me whipping out some acrylic paint, because I really want to mix my collage with some paint and see what I can create. So my idea for this page was to layer on a base of just any random scraps of papers and then to go over the top with my paint and kind of create a bit of a like textured background. So I'm just picking out any old pieces of paper. I wasn't really too concerned with what they look like because I'm going to go in with the paint anyway, so some bits might get covered up or you know, blended into the background and stuff. So basically what I'm doing is just going in and sticking them down randomly, absolutely anywhere. It doesn't really matter which order you stick things down in, as long as you've got them sort of spread across the page. That was kind of what I was going for. So as you can see, I'm using bigger scraps. I'm also using smaller pieces, just sort of creating a layered effect with them, as I have been doing the past few spreads that I've been doing. I've been really enjoying this just to use things up, and because I'm using an A6 journal, I just feel like you don't need as much to create the page. So I really like how it looks, because I think if I use these tiny scraps on a larger surface, then you'd need more of them, and I just think it would look a little different, whereas on this smaller size I just think they go really well. So I'm just filling in any gaps that I can see or places where I think that I need some like more papers, and then I'm stealing some brown paper from the scrap brown paper that I've got on the side there. And then what I'm going to do is come in with my paints, and I've got my pot of water there just because I knew I was going to mix some colours, but as you can see I'm drying my brush off on just like a scrap rag kind of thing, because you don't want your paintbrush to really be wet, because as we're putting it onto this surface, it's not like we're using papers that paint is supposed to go on. So we're not using, like, say if you were using watercolour, you'd use watercolour paper, and these are just like all sorts of different papers, so they're not all going to deal with like moisture and like water very well. So with using acrylic and then a dry brush, the paint's going to sit on top, so it didn't like warp as much, because it's not as like wet. So I don't think this technique would work very well with watercolour. I'm not sure about gouache. I've not actually used gouache before. I really want to give it a go, but I just used what I had on hand, which is acrylic. So the colour you can see me using here, I believe it's called Titanium Buff. It's sort of like a beigey colour, and I chose this because I thought it would make a really good base for blending in with the pages that I've already got on the background, and really pushing some of the more loud pieces of paper sort of back into the background. So I just sort of put it on all over the page, and left some areas blank as well, because I didn't just want to cover it up completely. Then you can see I'm mixing a sort of dusky, like palish pink kind of colour. I just thought that that would complement the colours that we've got already on the page. And then as you can see, I'm just sort of adding some like blotches to the pages, and then I'm like spreading it out with the brush when it doesn't have as much paint on it, so that's kind of working it into the background. So I'm not creating a blended effect as such, but I don't want it to look like completely stark on the page, and as you can see I'm pulling in some more of that white just to soften the pink and to soften any of the edges as well. So you kind of want to make it look like blended but still like painterly, and then of course as well I am being mindful of the papers that are on the page and what I'm covering up, because some of the patterns and stuff I still want them to be like showing and lift through, so I'm just being mindful when I'm putting the paint on. But some of the areas the paint has gone on quite thin anyway, so you can still see it. And then I'm going in with some white paint and just sort of adding little dots, just to add a bit more interest. I was feeling it was looking a bit too bland, just the paint splotches on their own, so I was just adding those just for a bit of texture, and then again adding just some more white paint as well. So now I'm bringing in my stamps and I'm just going to stamp out create more, just a little bit of text on the page. Because I've done such a like textured, layered, quite heavy in a way background, it's very busy, I didn't want to cover up the page too much with anything else because the mixed media element was what I wanted to be the focus of the page. So I just thought if I did some like bold stamping, then that would stand out and not detract too much from the rest of the page. So I found a video here on YouTube by Treasured Books. You might know her. She makes junk journal videos, but she did a video on using your scraps to make these little like folding envelopes, and I just sat down with my scraps and made a bunch of them. So I was working out how I could add one of these to my page, just as a bit more interest, and because I didn't want to write on top of the page, I was trying to come up with a way of what I could add to the page that would still allow me to maybe add some writing or some photos, but without like going over the textured background. So as I'm thinking of what to do with that, I decided to whip out some washi tape and just add a couple of strips just as decoration. So I added like a black grid style one just to complement the stamping, and then this sort of marbled pink one just as a little embellishment on the page as well. So what I decided to do was add a tag to this page, and I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to add it on the page. So what I decided to do was grab some tracing paper and then staple that to the left hand side and the bottom of the page to create a sort of tuck spot. And the reason I chose tracing paper was because you can still see through it a bit, so it wasn't like covering up completely the textured background that I already had, so that you could still obviously see through it. So I decided that was a great spot to keep my little tag in. So I found another tag that already had some string on it, so I just swapped that out. And then what I decided to do was grab one of the smaller envelopes that I had created and attach that to the tag, just so I could use it for adding a bit of writing or, you know, whatever I want to add to the page. So that's pretty much everything I did to this page. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing this process video, something a little bit different obviously because it's more mixed media, more touching on art journaling rather than junk journaling, but I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of these Junk Journal January videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.